Before heading down this ladder, the team thinks it'd be a good idea to clear out the greenhouses. That's why we recruited Rose after all. There's another exploding pod which Phalanx disposes of and collects. Behind it is a laser disc machine. Was it some kind of weapon? There are doors to the east and west. The western door has a lit code panel that reads "Lock Failure." Verdant and unforgiving, this dense mass of vegetation has completely blocked the path. Unless it can somehow be weakened, nothing short of heavy artillery will get through it. Stone tries throwing one of his pipe bombs into the mess, but it's ineffective. Behind the eastern door, barbed tendrils envelop everything below, barring our way. The plants will need to be cut away or blown up before we can pass. Jack cuts through it, and behind the vines is a locked door. It takes a couple tries, but he manages to get it open. As they enter the eastern greenhouse, they receive another transmission from Kathy.
I'm seeing a bunch of researchers and farmers under attack in the greenhouse. You've got to get rid of the animals attacking them and clear a path out.
As they venture further, they spot 4 humans. Anyone got anything to confess? I think this is our last chance. I'm in love with Kathy Lawson. Great, now we get to die awkward. The team rushes in to save them, and manage to take a fly down, but they set off a nearby exploding pod, hitting Rose and Drift. A pair of superflies and 3 pod people turn toward us. Jack rushes toward a superfly, but his movement sets off an exploding pod, infecting him. Angela Death's bullets rip into a superfly, terminating the flying horror. A superfly's vile spit strikes Jack, poisoning him with its bile. Angela's bullets rip into the other superfly, snuffing out the flying parasite. A pod person is hit by Phalanx's SMG fire, ending its painful metamorphosis. Rose's bullet pounds into a pod person, dropping it like a stone. Stone hits the last pod person, ending its painful metamorphosis. Drift patches up Jack, Rose, Phalanx, and herself. The slow squishing and slushing of citrusy growth fills us with alarm. So does the slow bending of distant celery stalks creaking in the breeze. Phalanx goes around this greenhouse, taking down the rest of the pods and collecting their fragments, while Drift administers a dose of antivenom to Jack for the bile. Drift feels a fruit squish underfoot, and then feels it slowly squirm and slush out of the way like a vegetable slug. Unfortunately, Phalanx stands a bit too close to one of the pods, and the wet brunt of the explosion splashes over him, spreading its contagion. There are a pair of crates in one of the corners, one of which carries a trap. Once again, Stone finds this trap too advanced for him, but he takes from the other. It's like the Garden of Eden if someone had tried to fit the whole damn thing in a shoebox. The northern door is blocked by vegetation, but Rose opens the southern door, which leads back to where Rachel met her explosive end. Inside, they find the employees they rescued, who are busy lamenting the future of the Ag Center and arguing over who will get Kathy. Back at the entrance, they speak to Kathy, who is happy to see Rose helping them, and Stone hands her 9 more pod fragments.
Thanks again for the pod. Find me later in the lab. Come on, Matt. Let's have a look at this monstrosity.
We head to the lab to see if we can't sell the extra junk to Matt, but he doesn't look at us. He just hunches in his chair, shaking and staring at the floor. So we turn to Kathy.
Good, you're back. I've got the cure. At least I know what we need. It was easy once I figured out the pods were mutated fungal spores. All we need is a fungicide, and fortunately, there's a bunch of the stuff in the mushroom caves in the basement. Bring me some, and I can make a serum that'll cure Matt and any of you who are infected. Please, go, quickly.
Before we can go into the caves, there's another greenhouse that potentially needs saving.
Rangers, I see one of our animal researchers, Julio, near the radio dish. Looks like he's been cornered by his own rabbits. Watch out for those rabbits. They've got big, nasty teeth.
A man cowers behind a fence as monstrous rabbits try to get over it and attack him. His heart-wrenching sobbing is broken only by the occasional terrified scream. Rose calls out to Julio. Meanwhile, Drift takes aim at one of the red pods, which is near one of the rabbits. Showing their big, nasty teeth, 3 giant rabbits nibble voraciously on mutated plant life. A giant rabbit is struck by 2 rounds of Phalanx's SMG, ending its twisted existence. Julio can be heard crying out in the distance. Stone tries to use his animal whispering skill to calm one of the beasts, but he fails. Angela runs out of ammo and screams as she hits one of the rabbits with Ace's wrench, terminating its unnatural life. Drift takes aim at the last rabbit, but accidentally hits Jack, giving him a bleeding wound. The last rabbit is pierced by a round of Phalanx's SMG barrage, putting it out of its misery. Julio laments that this is the saddest day of his life. Another preserved rabbit's foot is found among the corpses, and Phalanx gets to wear this one. Drift uses a suture kit on Jack to help clean up the mess she caused, and then talks to Julio. "Rose, you loved my rabbits. How could you let them do that?" Julio swears at us. He raised those rabbits since they were kits. When Matt told him the Rangers were coming, he didn't think we'd make the madness worse. Drift tells him that we cleared a path for his escape, and he decides to hole up in the kitchen, then asks if we found Doc Larson. He runs the center's infirmary, and a lot of people will be in trouble if he's too hurt to heal them. Julio doesn't think anyone at the center is behind this, but if it was, he'd pick the weirdo, Sue. Drift asks why he suspects Sue. Julio says he's a strange one. Strange name, habits, ideas. He spends all his time feeding the pigeons or hiding in his room and reading. Julio thinks he's up to something. Metal glints faintly under the dense cover of brambles. It's the radio dish. We can hear its heavy-duty superstructure groaning under the intense weight of the growing, throbbing vines that are crushing it in their grip. Until the pumps that are feeding contaminated nutrients to the vines can be shut off, nothing is going to be able to cut through them. Vegetation clogs the network of pumps and motors that would normally move the dish into place. We'll have to find a way to clear the overgrowth before we'll be able to make this thing work. We're not sure if the vegetables here are ready to be plucked or if they're looking for humans to pluck and devour. Drift finds a medic pack in a crate to the west, and Stone goes to open another crate. There's a trauma kit inside, but he failed to notice the attached trap. The trap also sets off a nearby pod, and everyone is caught in the ensuing blasts. Luckily, we stocked up on medic packs earlier, and Drift fixes up the mess as much as she can. With both of the greenhouses cleared, the team rushes back to the ladder to the central basement. Before they head down it, Drift radios the Citadel to give an update on the situation. Vargas lets her know that all 4 members of Team Echo have earned promotions to Specialist. Drift puts more skill into leadership. It might help if they find more people on their way. Phalanx wants to study more on computer science if he's going to try to fix the Ag Center's computers. Jack wants to be more perceptive as he doesn't like the idea that he missed the trap earlier. With the exception of Stone and Angela, everyone has been hit by the pods now, and they are definitely feeling it. Phalanx may be slightly over his fear of death, but the prospect of becoming a pod person is even worse to him. Stone is tired of things literally blowing up in his face, and Drift is anxious to help her team with the pod infection.